What's up, everybody? It looks like I'm getting a little bit loud. Let me just move the mic away from my mouth because I tend to speak really loud sometimes. Um, I Today I wanted to build a Trello clone. I thought for some reason I just got this feeling inside me where I was like, man, I just want to build something. I'm so sick of not building new things, doing the same thing at work and working on videos where I'm building like simple projects and wanted to do one of those videos where you build something sort of from scratch, as quickly as you can using Quasar. And so I was going to do that today, and then I realized that the authenticating um, with Laravel Sanctum is really, really annoying with Quasar, and frankly, a lot of other frameworks. And unfortunately, that's by design. Like the reality is, there's just so many like little bits and pieces to authenticating that makes it really difficult for Sanctum to streamline for everything. So Sanctum is really streamlined if you're creating like just a basic Laravel application. But if you want to have Laravel with Nuxt or Laravel with Quasar or Laravel with something else and use Sanctum, then there's always these tiny bits and pieces you have to tweak. Like, do you want to use subdomains? Do you want to have state across like just like the same site? Are you going to proxy your request, or are you going to use Nginx to you? And there's just all this stuff that ends up making it complicated. So what I want to do is create an app extension that's going to ease that, at least for myself for now, and then later on I'll make it a lot more generalized. And that's what this is. So this is what I've created here. So if I open up, I don't need to open up anything actually. This should be ready to go. I'll open up my networks tab here and let's have a look what happens. Make sure I'm logged out. Cool. So now I can log in as john@example.com, and I might actually just do this here. So if I say john@example.com, and the password is just password, I think, in this example, and let's log in. So that's gone ahead and logged in, and we can see that this component here, so you get this basic login component that's got a few slots like on top and below, so you can kind of like plug in wherever you like with it. But yeah, it also emits a success to let you know if it's successful, or I think an error as well to let you know if there's an error. But once again, this is just for me for now. I'll probably make it public, but it needs a lot of working to make it a lot more streamlined and flexible. So I can log in, and I can fetch the user now. So there we go. That all works. I can log out. Now if I try and fetch the user again, I'm going to get this error here. So let's just log in again there. Oh, I need to make sure that that's all cleared. Fetch the user, and this time it's going to work. If I go, the other cool thing that I wanted to implement was make it really easy to handle routing, because routing, when you're doing using something like Sanctum, is actually really difficult because you have to like, I'll show you the code in a second for how I do this, but it's surprisingly not as simple as you might think it is. So if I try to go to an auth only route, this is going to work for me. Let's go back and go to a public route. That will also work for me. But then if I log out here, and then I try to go to an auth-only route, it actually redirects me straight back here. It tries to fetch the user from the server. What it's going to do is it's going to check for the user in your state. If the user doesn't exist in your state, it will try and fetch the user from the server. If it doesn't exist on the server, then it's going to send you back here. So I've tried to make it as efficient as possible in that regard. And so let me just give you a little bit of an idea of how it works. I've been working on the README to try and make this super clear. Instructions for what you have to do on the Laravel side as well for like a basic implementation. So I've been working on that because this is going to need some good documentation for the reasons I gave before, where it's not as straightforward as I wish it was, but I don't blame Laravel for that. I think it's something that simply cannot be straightforward because of the amount of configuration that can go into something like authentication with Sanctum. But anyway, let me give you an idea of how it works. We've got this sanctumorph.js, and you've got your default configuration. So I try and use the Sanctum defaults there. And this basically has a lot of functionality, like fetching the CSRF token. If you know how Sanctum works, you know you need to get your CSRF token first. Requesting password reset. I haven't even tested that yet, so hopefully that works. Fetching the user, stuff like that. And I plan on making all of this dynamic. Oh, I think I got that function in there twice. All right, I need to clean that up. But Yeah, so the plan is to eventually make it really dynamic, so all of this, even Axios doesn't have to be used here, and you'll be able to sort of log in and log out and configure those requests as you would like to. So there's that. Now this part is the part that I'm particularly proud of, that I think is really cool. And what it does is it helps you authorize routes. And so you take in to, from, and next, so you can hook into your global routes um, and pass in your options. So your options are things like, how you fetch the local user, how you fetch the user from the back end, your login and log out endpoints, all that related stuff. And I think a lot of this needs to be sort of configured and streamlined a little bit better, but that's okay for now. And the idea is you can have a whole bunch of public routes. So public routes you will be able to visit even if you're not logged in. But if you are logged in and it's not a public route, then it's going to send you to the login page. And this is a pattern that I use all the time. So I thought I'd create this kind of helper class that makes all of this a lot easier for you. Yeah, and so what it does, if I just scroll to the top here, this is the authorization logic that used to be really complicated to me and that I hated to write. And so it basically checks if it's the logout route. And if it's the logout route, then it's going to call next. So it's going to let you log out. If it is not the login route, and you know what, I'm not going to go through all of this logic. It gets a little bit sticky and complicated, but that's why I wrote this class for you. And the idea is you can then have your boot method. So if I go to my dev here, source boot, this is where you can actually configure all of that stuff. So this is the configuration for Laravel for Sanctum. And we've got this config file. I'm going to flesh this out a little bit more. For now, it's just a login URL and logout URL, and I'll add in like password reset and a bunch of other things. But so basically, we instantiate Sanctum, and we supply it so that you can do stuff like this $auth if you're not using the composition API, or if you're inside of a component, you can call like $auth and stuff like that. And then I provide Sanctum auth, which means that using the composition API, we can do stuff like use auth and do something like this, like const auth is equal to use auth, something like that, using the composition API. So that's where I'm providing Sanctum auth here. But then this is kind of the magic here. This is the part that you can configure yourself. Fetching the local user, I haven't set that up in this development environment, but the idea is if you're using like Vuex, this would be how you fetch the local user and basically check that you've got the local user in storage. Because then what it will do is it will try and fetch the local user on the front end every single time you visit a new route, as opposed to trying to fetch the user every single time you visit a new route. And the idea is when you log out and this user is then cleared, it will then go back to sort of trying to fetch the user again. And if you're not logged in, then it would, of course, send you back to the login route. I know that's a little bit complicated. I'm kind of blasting through this. You can set your login endpoint. You can set your logout endpoint. They've got some sensible defaults for you. You can change the way that it's notified via an error. So I'm just doing an alert for now. So if you don't, if an error comes up in the back end, then you can decide on how you want to handle that. And then also setting your public routes. And this is the really cool part. So if you've got like a landing page that's within your same app, if you've got your landing page or other pages that anybody should be able to visit publicly, then you can add them in to the list here. And then your home endpoint is just going to be where you're sent to after you log in. So anyway, I thought this was really cool. Dealing with all that authorization logic was always just so freaking annoying to me. So to be able to just throw it all into this boot file, it looks like a pretty complicated boot file. It's really not that bad though, considering that this is allowing you to set up the entirety of authentication and is going to allow you to be able to do stuff like this $auth or use it using composables. But anyway, just wanted to show that to you. Thank you so much everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the next